How you doing, everyone? Greetings and welcome to today's episode of 8 Bits in the Basement. Now, I'll be honest, I know it's been a heck of a long time since I put out a video, but in my defense, I've been spending all my time learning assembly language, and although it's a lot of fun, it does take up all your time. So that's pretty much what I've been doing. But I decided it was kind of high time that I threw a video together and showed you some of the stuff I've been doing, some of the stuff that I've been learning. So today's episode, what we're going to do is we're going to focus in on digital audio, or creating digital audio on the color computer. So this should work on the 1, the 2, or the Coco 3. Now, digital audio on 8-bit computers is something that that's available, or not available, but is present in an awful lot of games. And I remember on the Commodore 64, there was one good example of it, and it was in the game Myth, or was it Myst? Myth, I think it was called. And at the very beginning, there was a voice of a woman who said, "Welcome to Myth." And it was a little bit garbled, it was a little bit kind of crunchy, but it was good. I thought it was very good, and I figured that was the best that could be achieved by an 8-bit computer. Now remember that Commodore 64 was using the SID chip as well. A number of years later, when I got my color computer 2, I played a game on it called Sea Dragon. And at the very beginning of Sea Dragon, there is a little voice sample that says, "Welcome aboard, Captain." And that was a little bit crunchy as well, a little small bit garbled, but I said to myself, hang on a minute, this actually doesn't even have a sound chip. Coco 2 doesn't really have a sound chip at all, and yet it's able to do this. That's quite amazing. A couple of months later, when I played a game by Nickolas Marentes called Donut Dilemma, my mind was completely blown. I'm going to run it for you here. And it was 1 o'clock in the morning. I was playing around with my Coco in the basement, and I ran this game for the first time. And this right here is what I heard.
Donut dilemma. Donut dilemma. Donut dilemma.
Now, there are a few little effects after being put in there, but man, that blew me away. I said, hang on, here's a computer that doesn't have any kind of sound chip at all, and the clarity, the volume, everything to do with that sound was damn amazing to me. And I wondered how was that done? Of course, I had no idea, and I knew that it was way too much learning involved to ever try and figure it out. But having learned a little bit about assembly language and how that works, I came back to this idea and I said, hey, hang on a minute, Pete, maybe we'll be able to figure this one out this time. So that's what this video is about. I had a look to try and figure out how Nickolas Marentes did this thing, and to try and hack it so that I could put my own audio onto it. Come follow me and I'll show you what I discovered. Okay, so what we're going to be doing is we're going to be having a little delve into the files on the donut.disk, virtual disk image, to see what's in there, to see what we can take, what we can learn from the files that are there, and maybe create our own. So the very first thing I did was I loaded up Xroar, because the easiest way to do this kind of hacking is to use modern hardware that's available to us with all the tools and gimmicks and whatnot that we have nowadays. It makes this kind of stuff an awful lot easier. So within Xroar, what I did was I mounted that donut.disk, and I ran the dir command to see what files were in there. Now there is the donut.bas file, which is the one we run in order to launch the game, and that's the one that will play that little sound sample at the very beginning that says Donut Dilemma, and then carry on to ask you what computer you're using and what version of the game you wish to play. But if you look down, the fourth file in the list is voice.bin, and it seems to be the largest file on the entire disk. So I figured it was a pretty good chance that that had the voice data that we needed to see exactly what it was. So what I did was, using a tool called imgtool, as far as I remember, if I can see it here. Yes, imgtool. Oh, this thing is flashing mad. Hang on. Called imgtool, I managed to extract that voice.bin file onto my hard drive so I could fool around with it, play around with it, see what it was. Now, imgtool is part of a suite of tools that come with MAME. And MAME is an acronym for Multiple Arcade Machine Emulator. And what it is basically an emulator that kind of works for a huge amount of systems. You've got a load of arcade cabinets that are emulated with it, but also 8-bit home computers, Coco being one of them. And alongside MAME, there are a whole host of tools that make using these systems an awful lot easier. So you have tools that let you manipulate audio and that kind of stuff. And also this particular one, imgtool, that will let you create disk images that will work on your color computer, but also it'll let you put files onto those images and let you remove files from them. So what I did was I ran the imgtool in order to get or to take the voice.bin file, which you see here, from the donut.disk image, which I had with Donut Dilemma on it. And I asked it to save out that voice.bin file as voice.bin on my hard drive. And once I had ran that, it gave me what you see here, this little voice.bin file, which is 16 kilobytes big. So I figured the best thing to do with that, just without posting any questions, without looking at it at all, was to try and load it up in Audacity and see what it gave me. Okay, so Audacity gave me a clue as to what the heck I needed to do, because I never really used Audacity before, but it said to me that Audacity did not recognize the type of file, the voice.bin file, but it told me I could try to import it as raw data. So I figured that was worth trying. So I went down to import raw data and I navigated across to my voice.bin file. Now this gave me all kinds of settings and I was unsure as to exactly what to pick, apart from I knew it was most likely 8-bit PCM sound if it was anything like that. But down here there is a detect button. And when I clicked on that, it kind of set everything up for me. So I decided I'd try it at that and see what it gave me. So this looked very, very encouraging. Playing the file, this is what I got. It sounds a bit like Donut Dilemma, but it's very, very fast. So I decided I'd try loading it up again, but to reduce the speed. So this time I ran the detect again, but I reduced the sample rate from 44,100 megahertz, or 44,100 hertz, down to 8,000 hertz to see what that'd give me. Okay, it's definitely saying Donut Dilemma, so it is definitely a voice recording, as simple as that, but it is very slow. So I decided once again just to screw around a little bit with the Hertzian settings to see which one worked best. So I imported at 11,025 hertz, and what I got was this.
Donut Dilemma. Donut Dilemma.
Now this is fantastic because I realized that if this works like this with these settings, all I need to do is make my own recording, save them to the same settings, rename the file that I produce as a bin file, and put it back onto the disk, and it should play my own recording in place of the Donut Dilemma recording that Nick put on the disk in the first place. So I thought I had this thing cracked. So that's exactly what I did. Now, so I'm after spending the last 2 to 3 minutes making a little audio file that's only about 1.5 seconds long. All I did was I recorded it using this webcam that I have here, real simple kind of little mono microphone in it, nothing special at all. And once I had made my little recording, I imported it into Audacity. And then I could kind of cut it to the size I wanted it to be. Now, it's 1.5 seconds long, more or less, because I want the finished file that I have to be more or less the same size as the original voice.bin file that we took off of the Donuts disk image. And what I've recorded is just a little soundbite of what I think Donut Dilemma would have been called had it been written in Ireland instead of Australia back in the 80s. So instead of Donut Dilemma, we've got Faking Donuts. That's it, feckin' donut. So what we're going to do is we're going to save that out. And what we do is we go to File, Export Audio. We're going to export it to our computer. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave the file name unchanged. It's going to be called untitled.raw so that we know what we're working with. I'm going to save it out to this folder. The format that we want to choose is other uncompressed files. It gives us a load of different formats we can choose from, but other uncompressed files is the one we want. We're going to save it out as mono audio with a sample rate of 11,025 Hertz, which is what the import worked well for us using. The header here we're going to leave raw, headerless, because we want it just to be the pure data with nothing extra. And it will be encoded as unsigned 8-bit PCM. So we just export it at that, and we should have a file now that we can put onto our donut.disk and see if it actually works for us or not. So what I'm going to do is, you'll see we have it here, untitled.raw. And again, using the image tool that we used before, instead of using get, we're going to use put to put this untitled.raw file onto our disk. So what we're going to do is, again, it's the donut disk image, but we want to put untitled.raw onto the disk, and we want it to be seen on disk as voice.bin, all in block capitals. There we go. So now when I open this file in Xroar, or when I mount the disk in Xroar and I run it, it should say feckin' donuts instead of donut dilemma. Let's see if it works. Okay, so I'm after mounting our new modified disk image inside an Xroar. Everything looks to be the same, and we will run the donut basic file like we did before and see if it gives. Well, as you can see, it didn't say feckin' donuts. We got beeps and boops instead. And to be honest, when this happened first, I didn't have a clue as to why. I thought that I had done everything properly and there wasn't much more I could really do. I tried a few other bits and pieces, but to no avail. And it wasn't until the next day at work that it occurred to me that maybe the problem was my file didn't actually have a header. You'll remember we exported it as a raw file, headerless, which was indeed the right thing to do. We just wanted a data stream. But you see, a header is a couple of bytes stuck onto the beginning of a file that kind of tell an application that opens that file what the file is exactly and how to use it. And well, without a header, the Coco doesn't really know what to do with it. So I figured maybe the best solution, just to do a hacky type thing that didn't expend any kind of brain power, was to look at the original voice.bin file, see what the first few bytes in that were, and just superimpose those onto my untitled.rar file to see if that would actually make it work. So let me show you how I did that. Now, so any of you who have ever programmed chips or anything like that will most probably be familiar with this software. This is the Mini Pro programmer software that you would use to program a chip, but you can also use it to examine bytes in a file. And what I've done here is I've just selected a 16 kilobyte ROM chip because the size of those files, the voice.bin ones, are 16 kilobytes. So we can actually see the contents in the buffer here. So what I did first was I opened the original voice.bin file that we had exported from the donut.disk image file, and I did the same thing in another instance of the Mini Pro programmer software with my untitled raw file. And as you can see here, the beginning bytes are actually completely different, which they would be. I mean, it makes sense. You save out a file, it's not going to have exactly the same beginning bytes as another file unless the correct header has been inserted. So you'll notice here that on the original voice.bin file, it starts with 003E812328 and so on. What I did was I took my untitled.raw file, and I just copied those bytes in, just overwriting what was already there, and saved it out. And once I had done that, I saved out the resultant file as header.bin. So now I have in my folder here my little header.bin file as well. So this is the untitled.raw file with the first 16 bytes of voice.bin stuck on top of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that onto my donut disk. Okay, so Xroar open again. Now we've got our newly modified disk mounted. It's reading it, so that's good. And we're about to run donut.bas. Let's see if it plays feckin' donuts.
Feckin' donuts. Feckin' donuts.
So there you go, it works. So what we can do is we can make a sound recording, save it out with the correct settings using Audacity, and then kind of hackily put in a header in order to get it to work with somebody else's code. So that's good. We know in theory kind of how to do it. But the next thing I wanted to do was to do it off my own bat, to make my own little recording and to write my own little program to see if I could get this to work. So thanks, Nick, for getting me this far. Let's see if I can take it to the next level. Okay, so I've just done a little preliminary edit. We're 17 minutes in. It's more than long enough for one video. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this video into 2 or possibly even 3 parts. And in part 2, what we're going to do is, without using any kind of a crutch or without any hackery whatsoever, we're going to create our own little sound file and we're going to write a little assembly language routine that will read it directly into the DAC on the Coco and play it. So there'll be no kind of external kind of help from somebody else's programming. But just before I leave, let me thank a couple of people. Number one, I want to thank Mr. Dave 6309, a buddy of mine on Discord, who gave me the push and started me into assembly language. And I wouldn't be doing this without him. And not only that, but he also introduced me to the whole concept of headers, what they are, how they work, and all that kind of stuff a long time ago when he was explaining to me how to put bitmap files onto your Coco. So thanks for all that, Dave. Secondly, L. Curtis Boyle, who I got into contact with on the Discord server as well, and he recommended that I use Audacity for my digital Coco experiments. And not only that, but he provided a little bit of help as well on the assembly language that I'd need to use in order to get it to play, kind of using my own assembly language more or less. So we'll be looking a lot more at that in the next episode. So again, a thank you to you, Curtis, for that. And finally to Nick Marentes for writing Donut Dilemma and for putting a little sound file that I could tinker with at the very beginning of it. Now, he doesn't know that I've been doing this, so hopefully he'll be all right with it. But anyway, I'm going to leave you at that. Until the next time, Coco forever.